This video is brought to you by Sinjin. This analysis was conducted for American Express to identify and evaluate factors that impact customer attrition. But let's start by defining attrition. Attrition is just whenever a business loses a customer for whatever reason. Now, why is this analysis important? Well, whenever you lose a customer, you want to be able to identify why, so you can determine whether it's something that you can change to prevent future attrition for the same reason. Now, let's get into the actual analysis. The dataset provided by American Express for this analysis included 10,127 observations of current and attrited customers. It included customer information like financial metrics, activity, and demographics. For the analysis, a visual analysis was first conducted through Tableau, which yielded two dashboards, one providing a general overview of attrition, and the other providing a breakdown of key factors by gender. Then, there was also a regression analysis conducted on Excel. But first, let's take a look at those dashboards. So here we have the Attrition Overview dashboard. As you can see, it has three donut charts, each for a different customer attribute, like gender, card type, and income bracket. Now, as the legend up here states, attrited customers are represented by the color yellow, and existing customers are represented by blue. So, if we take a look at the charts, they each display the distribution of customers by attrition for a particular attribute. And you'll notice that each of them have a filter next to the title. You can use the filters to isolate the observations. For instance, in the income chart, if you only want customers who are in the income bracket of less than $40,000, you just select it in the filter and it will update the chart accordingly. You can see that it updated both the percentage values as well as the center value, which is the total count of observations for that category, excluding filtered out observations. If you hover over the different colors on the chart, you can also see the exact counts for that respective category. So, for instance, there are 612 attrited customers in this income bracket and 2,949 existing customers. If you hover over the center value, it will display the distribution of education level for that respective category, as well as any notes on observations excluded for that specific chart. If you want to read more about a specific chart, just click on the little read text located below the title and click it again to close it. You may have also noticed that changing the filter in this chart also updated the scatter plot below. The scatter plot displays total transaction amount by total transaction count, with again attrited customers being represented by the yellow dots and existing customers represented by the blue dots. Now, this plot actually filters out observations based on all three filter criteria in the donut charts. So, if you change the card type to platinum, the scatter plot only shows observations of customers who are platinum card holders and in the income bracket of less than $40,000. If you want to see data for a specific observation, you can hover over one of the points and it will tell you the customer ID, their status, total transaction count, total transaction amount, and average transaction amount. You'll also notice that there are trend lines for each status type. If you hover over one of the trend lines, it will show you the equation for that trend line as well as its R-squared and p-value. As you can see in this equation, and as evidenced by the scatter plot, there is an exponential relationship between total transaction count and total transaction amount. If you want to read more about the plot, just click on the description and the insights text up here, and click it again to close it. Now, let's take a look at the gender analysis dashboard, and we can go to it by going to the left-hand navigation bar and simply click in the title. You'll notice it's fairly similar to the attrition dashboard, but just focus on gender, with female customers represented by pink and male customers represented by blue. Now, the donut chart over here looks pretty much the same as the ones in the attrition dashboard, so it represents the composition of customers by gender, and if you hover over one of the sections, you can see the exact customer count for that gender. The only difference is, if you hover over the center value, it will show you a distribution of marital status by gender. And then, to the left of it, we have another composition chart that just displays the composition of the different types of card holders by gender. So, you can see, male customers compose 71% of platinum card holders, and female customers 29%. Again, hovering over the sections shows you the exact counts. And then to the left again, we have a simple bar chart displaying the average total transaction count by gender. If you want to read more about any of these charts, just click the little read tabs below the respective titles and click it again to close it. Now, the filters for this dashboard are actually on the scatter plot. This scatter plot displays average utilization ratio by credit limit. You can use the gender filter to isolate observations of a specific gender, and this applies only to the scatter plot. But then, you can also use the other filters to isolate observations on all of the charts. For instance, if you want to see only a chart of customers at, say, an income bracket of less than $40,000, you just add them to the filters and everything will update accordingly. If you want to see data for a specific observation, you again just hover over one of the points and it will tell you the customer ID, their status, gender, credit limit, and average utilization ratio. If we take a look at one of the trend lines here, we can see that there is a parallel relationship between credit limit and average utilization ratio, specifically a negative one. And then finally, if you want to read more about the plot, just click on the description and insights text, and then click it again to close it. Alright, let's get back to the presentation. So, from the Tableau dashboards, there are a couple of key takeaways. First, attrited customers have higher average transaction amounts than existing customers on average, which suggests attrited customers are more affluent. Second, female customers have significantly lower credit limits than male customers on average, despite having higher average utilization ratios on average, which could indicate there being a gender bias against female customers in the credit limit assigning procedures. Based on these insights, it is recommended the points reward system be expanded to include more features targeted at higher income customers, such as high-end experiences and partnered restaurants. Additionally, it is recommended American Express review its credit limit assigning policies and procedures to identify and address any potential unfair bias against female customers. Lastly, it is recommended more data be collected to try to explain some of the significant patterns and trends seen in the dashboards, specifically customer type, such as personal or business, and profession type, such as teaching or medical. Now, let's take a look at the regression analysis. The original dataset had 20 variables, but 6 of them were turned into dummy variables, yielding a total of 30 variables, specifically 1 dependent and 29 independent variables. A total of 192 linear probability models were constructed, aiming to predict the probability of customer attrition, specifically 87 simple and 105 multiple regressions. They were compared with one another using the adjusted R-squared and standard error. The final model, pictured here, was selected based on its R-squared, interpretability, and number of significant variables. It should be noted that 3,310 observations that lacked data for one or more of the included independent variables were excluded to construct this model. Its R-squared was 0.3872, meaning it is 38.72% of the way towards perfectly predicting the probability of customer attrition. Its standard error was 0.2861, meaning predictions made using this model are off by an average of 28.61 percentage points. All 20 independent variables included in the final model were significant at a 10% significance level. Notably, the final model did have several regression violations, including nonlinear patterns, heteroscedasticity, and multicollinearity. These are the variables with nonlinear pattern issues. These are the variables with heteroscedasticity issues. And these are the variables with multicollinearity issues. No corrections were implemented to address these violations for these specific variables to preserve the interpretability of the model or due to the corrections not being needed or appropriate for the respective variables. So, from the regression analysis, there are a handful of key insights. First, male customers are significantly less likely to attrit than female customers on average, which suggests potential differences in satisfaction or expectations among male and female customers. Second, customers with a platinum card are significantly more likely to attrit than those with different card types on average, which may indicate they are less satisfied on average and likely more inclined to search for alternatives. And third, married customers are less likely to attrit than non-married customers on average. There are several recommended courses of action based on the findings of the regression analysis. First, it is recommended that a new rewards program be introduced for platinum card holders. Next, it is recommended that more cosmetic card designs be introduced and targeted advertising towards female customers be used to help reduce the gap in retention among genders. Finally, it is recommended American Express develop educational content based on maintaining strong individual finances to boost retention among non-married customers. To improve the predictive capabilities of the regression model, it is recommended that American Express collect more data, specifically things like customer credit score, number of defaults, and employment status. Additionally, conducting customer satisfaction surveys can help differentiate customers who are trade due to satisfaction and those who are trade for other reasons, such as financial or major life changes. If you have any questions or for any further inquiries, please contact SIC at aesp.com. With that being said, thank you for watching.